Good morning, everyone. This is Lori Delk-Radecki with the Nashville Networking Group. So we do these live and online on Zoom and Facebook every single Tuesday from 11:30 to 12:30. We also have meetings in person every single week, 5 times a month. So if you'd like to see our schedule, go to nashvillenetworkinggroup.com. You can sign up for our email list there, or you can also join our groups on Facebook, Meetup, as well as LinkedIn. You can see and get reminders of who our speakers are each week and when we are meeting and what locations we are at. But Tuesdays, every single Tuesday, right here live on Zoom and on Facebook. So we are going to go ahead and get started. We always have a 10 to 15 minute speaker who talks to us about different tips, tricks, ideas, things that can help us both in your personal as well as your business life to help get you to that next level. After that, we go around the room. Everybody has 1 minute to give us your name, what you do for a living, and how we can better refer other people to you. After that, we exchange business cards on Zoom, obviously virtually, and then everyone has 1 minute to talk a little bit about themselves, and then we have a little bit of open networking before the meeting as well as at the end of every meeting. So we're going to go ahead and get started with our speaker today is Miss Carrie Jeffries. So please give her your attention.
All right. Having a tech thing here. So, okay. Okay, today we are going to do restart. Take your hands off that wheel. So here's the deal. Back in February, I just hit this massive wall. I felt like this race car going 200 miles an hour and just crashed into a wall. And the wall was major burnout. And so, and I've seen this over the course of the past year because I feel like the one word that I keep hearing over and over and over from friends, colleagues, clients, etc., is overwhelm. And part of the deal is this: we're overloading, overlearning, overworking, overcommitting, overcomplicating. And my new favorite saying is hashtag over it. It's too much, too many, too often, just to fill in the blank. And so if we look at this, there's a lot of things going on and there's a lot of pieces, but it really got, and I saw it before last year, but last year seemed like this rocket ship that just set people off on this crazy course. So let me back up for a minute. So in the past, I was reading the other day, in the past, we were getting like, 300 to 500 messages per day, especially with advertising, marketing, messages, etc. So God knows how much information we're getting. But now we're looking at almost, and this article was talking about almost nearly 5,000. Holy hellcat. That's crazy. And the other article I had read a while back was that, back in, I think it was 2016, there were like 2.5 quintillion pieces of information on the internet. Oh my God. So we're getting all this information, we're getting all these messages, we're getting all this stuff. And last year just seemed to simultaneously we hit the brake and the accelerator simultaneously. And what that's done is make people just intensify this like 1,000%. And the costs are enormous of what I'm seeing: stress, anxiety, frustration, brain fog, burnout, ask me how I know, and then depression, which is really ramped up. And a lot of it comes from we're losing time with things that balance us: friends, family, and fun. I love alliteration, so that's always fun to add those. But friends, family, and fun. But there is good news, because I'm not saying I've perfected this, but I've started working on this, and that's called permission to play smaller. So instead of this never-ending learning loop and hustle, now listen, I'm all about hard work, but hard work is one thing, and then over hustling is a different thing. So I was faced with this thing, and like, how do you go from this stressed and struggling to more happy and helping more people? Because we think we're helping more people, but if we don't have enough to deliver, if we're overwhelming ourselves, we don't have enough to help impact others. So, and the other thing I noticed is I was waking up heavier. So, life and the alternative is waking up lighter and fresher and starting to love your life and work again, because I was starting to hate everything. So, what do you do to change that? How do you stop with the so much? Again, it comes back to permission to play smaller. I like to say, think big, play small. I know we're always told to think bigger and play bigger. And I've said that. And there is an element of that. But there's also all of this, we're overwhelming ourselves. So let's start with first asking 2 questions before we go into anything. And one, before you're doing something, before you add something, before you continue something, does this line up with your desired outcome? Because you always have a driving desired outcome in anything that you're doing. So does it line up? And at first you're like, oh, well, of course it does. I need to do this. No, I need to, I have to, I must. We have to start looking at, does it really line up, and how does it line up? And then number 2, and this is so key. Oh my God, I cannot tell you how much I had to ask this to myself and still do daily basis, because I can overcomplicate anything with my ADD brain. So, is it simple to execute? And the key is maintain. Is it simple to execute and maintain? Doesn't always mean it's easy, because a lot of simple things are not necessarily easy, but is it simple? Because the overcomplication was killing me, and I'm watching it kill so many people, having to be so many places, having to try. Oh my God, I hate the word omnipresent. I got to be everywhere and do everything. So that's one of the things, is we're buried in this busyness of producing and creating and doing and performing, and we don't stop to ask these 2 questions. And we're told we have to be everywhere, and we have to be consistent, and we got to keep showing up, and we got to keep doing it. But it's absolutely feeding this hustle, what I call hustle mania. And you're just producing another pile of stuff. And the other thing I'm watching, especially in the content arena, which I've dealt a lot with, is they're just producing to produce. They're just doing another thing. Now, listen, I get it, because you're being told a lot of this stuff. How many thousands of times have we been told, we got to be consistent? Well, you know what? Here's a new saying for you: screw consistency. Now, there is a level of, you do have to show up a certain place, but you do not have to be everywhere, and you do not have to always be on. Because playing full out doesn't mean always on, always worried about everything. It's crazy town. And then 2, we've got to stop the endless learning loop. Before this was going on, we were having a conversation about how we already have a lot of this information. Exactly. 2.5 quintillion pieces of information in 2016. Where are we now in 2021? You do not need to learn another single thing. Now, I love to learn. If you want to learn for learning's sake, that's fine. But when it's adding to that pile of just more and more and more and endless, you're just stuck in this learning loop. And then we don't get to the doing piece. And then, do we really need to do it? Again, is the question. Is it simple, and is it easy to maintain? And a lot of things were not easy for me. So I have had to start clearing tons and tons and tons off my plate and ask, what is really, truly essential? And the other thing is, for the love of all things, pull the bleeping plug. We are so plugged into so many different things, especially, social media, which is not the holy grail. And quite frankly, when you look at some of the things from marketing, it is beneficial at some level, but there is still a lot more sales and a lot more other things going on outside of social media. And for some people, it's more effective when you ask that question, is it going to really get you your desired outcome? Well, social media will, to a point, but it's a long-term play for a lot of people. So, okay, what does this even mean when I say play, permission to play smaller, think big, play small? It comes down to making it easy and making it not easy, making it simple versus making it hard. I realize I can make everything really super hard. And I'm watching, especially top performers, make everything super hard because you're trying to play full out. So the solution is really pretty simple. So a while back, I had a client who was just like overloaded to the brim, and she was killing her fire and her focus and going in 1,000 directions. And finally, the straw that broke the camel's back just hit her, and she just ended up in like a total breakdown. However, the interesting thing was that breakdown led to her breakthrough. And in the process of all of this, it was costing her confidence. She was one of the most confident people I'd ever met. And I'm watching it eke away and eke away at her stuff because it's unsustainable at the level that we've been at. So when that's unsustainable, especially as a top performer, you start beating yourself up. Oh boy, I can do that with the best of them. I don't need other critics. I've got one in my own brain, you know, the bitch between the ears is what I like to call it. And they can really take you down. So what we had to do was just strip away a lot of the stuff and get down to the 2 questions that I'd said. And so it's permission and play smaller. And I created this concept called micro moves, because I realized everything was bigger, and we've got all these programs that are 90 days or 6 months, or God help us, a year long. And you know, like we need another 90-day course, like a hole in the head. Or we need another 90-day project, like a hole in the head. So micro moves is all about getting tiny, because these tiny little things, tiny bites, tiny pieces, tiny steps, tiny execution. However, there's one big piece, and that is big boundaries, because that's what I've been talking about, setting boundaries. So tiny bites, pieces, steps, micro moves, but big boundaries lead to big execution and results. You're thinking if you just did one little thing every day. Now, I don't want you to work on weekends, so we're not going to say you're going to have 365, percent better. But if you do that every day of the week, you are so much further along. Because what I'm noticing is all these people who are consuming and overlearning and they're so buried alive that almost nothing's getting done, or they've got too much and now they're buried alive by all the stuff that they produced. I watched this gal who was on her way to building a 7-figure business. She was so miserable, so unhappy, because she was buried alive in her own success, because she did so much, and it was overwhelming. And we're told all these productivity hacks and and more process and systems. All that's complicating, and we just need to get down to what's the tiny bite. And that includes tiny marketing, because everybody's like, you got to do all these things. Tiny marketing, yet highly targeted, is really key. So no more long coaching, no more long, for a while, boundaries around no more long coaching, no more 90-day programs, no more lots of adding of processes, and God help us if we need another tool. I'm going to tell you the truth. I went in and literally eliminated almost every tool, and I'm streamlining it down. Even I was having 2 websites and I was going insane. So now I'm blending the brands into one, because one is simple. It's not necessarily easy because I got to figure out all those things, but it is a much simpler process to not only manage, but to manage long term. So I can remember back, like when I was building this e-commerce business that I had for 10 years. And the key was, I was told 1,000 times, do this, and I got all caught up in all of this stuff. And then it started with one single purchase. I made this one single purchase and realized, I was like, wow, they don't really know what they're doing. And then bing, my entrepreneur brain goes on, and I'm like, I could do something with this and turn this into a business. But it all started with one, and then one tiny step. And I didn't just go full and try to, I did one little step at a time. And over the course of time, I built a strong, lasting business. And that's what we need to do with the tiny bites. So remember, when you're hitting those walls and overwhelmed, first of all, you need to back up and start asking yourself those 2 questions. And then we need to start building those big boundaries and look for the tiny bites. And I'm going to leave you with that. Actually, I'm going to leave you with a question. What is the single tiny bite that you need to do today that will actually impact what you want to accomplish with your driving desired outcome? That's it.
Perfect. Thank you so much. That was so wonderful. And of course, you know me, I've cut back on so many different things in my life. It's so much more blessed now. And guess what? Even though I cut back all those hours and things, the income is still there and even better. So it does make a difference. You don't have to wear 500 different hats and do 500 different things. And that Carrie said. So thank you so much, Carrie. And if you got blessed by this, comment below the video. Join us next week, every single Tuesday, right here live on Zoom as well as Facebook. You have to join the group to be behind the scenes to see everything else that's going on. We also have groups on Meetup, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Like I said, go to NashvilleNetworkingGroup.com to be on our email list to be notified of all the events. And we will see you next time, guys. Thanks so much, everyone.